Hey there, John Gibson here. I am the PCOS fat loss expert. My goal, my everything I do to be able to help people lose weight, and again, I focus on women with PCOS. My goal is to help them figure out how to work with their metabolism so they can lose weight. And the first person able to ever help do that was my own wife, and helping her lose. She lost 63 pounds in about 6 months, completely transformed her body and everything. And I've taken that information, I've built on it, and now here I am trying to help as many women as possible. Now today what I want to talk to you about is how we actually get your body to stop storing fat, okay? And I'm going to explain this in a second, something called the fat extraction method. But first, if you'd like to work with me, if you want me to be able to create a plan for you and help you see the success you want to see, to lose the weight you want to lose and all that with your PCOS, go ahead and go to fatextractionmethod.com. And what I'll do is you and I can get on the phone, we can talk, and we can figure out a plan for you. Okay, now I want to dive into this really quick because in this training, again, I'm going to talk about how we actually stop you from storing fat, because I've created something I call the fat extraction method. Now in the fat extraction method, there's 4 parts. Okay, part number 1 is that we actually work with your appetite and your cravings. We try to lower your appetite so you don't need as much food, okay? Number 2 is we actually start to work on your cravings so you don't deal and struggle with all the cravings that a lot of people do. Because a lot of people I talk to, that is probably one of the biggest things that gets in the way of them seeing the success they want to see. Okay, the second part of the fat extraction method is actually putting a barrier around your fat cells and keeping you from storing fat. The third part is actually opening up your fat cells so that we can pull fat out. So again, with your fat, you've got 2 different doors that allow fat in and doors that allow fat out. Okay, the doors that allow fat out, fat cannot come back in those doors. Okay, same thing with the doors that allow it in, fat cannot go out those doors. They're one-way doors. So we want to work with both of those doors. Now the fourth part of the fat extraction method is we actually work with your muscles and get your muscles better at using fat so everyone talks about this all the time. They always talk about how we need to make you fat adapted or get your body so it burns fat easier. But they do it the completely wrong way. Instead of actually working with your own physiology, they basically just shove fat down your throat and say, look, you're burning more fat. Cool, good job. We don't want to work that way, okay? We actually want to work with your body. And that's where those 4 parts come. But we're going to work on number 2, which is actually putting a barrier around your fat. Now, first, we need to understand something about how our cells work, okay? We have little things on our cells. We call them receptors. But we have these receptors on our cells that literally determine what happens inside the cell. Okay, everyone kind of understands insulin to one extent or the other. How insulin's job, it's a hormone, and what it does is it actually goes and binds to your cells. It attaches to your cells, and it tells the cell to open up and allow sugar to go, and glucose is what it is, glucose to go into the cell, right? Now, the problem is if we don't have any insulin, then we cannot open those doors, and no sugar, no glucose can go into your cell. Okay, and that's why someone with type 1 diabetes has to inject insulin if they're going to be able to take care of their blood sugar levels. Okay, hope that makes sense. Same thing happens with our fat cells. Okay, with our fat cells, what we do is we literally have receptors on there that respond to specific hormones, and those hormones tell the cell what to do. Some hormones, when they bind to the cell, what they'll do is they'll tell the cell to store more fat, to open up, allow fat and other things to come in and be stored there. Other hormones, when they bind to the cell, they actually tell the cell to do something different. So our job is this, okay? But the second part, to actually slow down your body from storing fat, is to either lower the hormones that cause your body to store fat, or to increase certain hormones that actually maybe stop your body. They'll tell the body, hey, we don't want to store any fat. And the reason why is because we want to use it. And there's some specific hormones that do that. Okay, now the first one, okay, the first 2 things that I'm going to talk to you about actually deal with one hormone, okay? So we're going to talk about 3 different ways that we can actually get your body to stop storing as much fat. Now the first way is, well, I guess the hormone, we'll deal with that, okay? The hormone that is involved in stopping your body from storing fat is growth hormone. Okay, so growth hormone, when we release it from our cells, what happens is it goes to our fat cells and it does 2 things. Number 1 is it goes to the cell and says, hey, we need more fat, because typically we release growth hormone when we need to recover and repair from a workout, or when we need to repair our muscles after some sort of damage or something like that. When we need some sort of growth to happen, right? And we're talking cell regrowth, rebuilding, repair, all of those things. So when we send out a signal and send out the growth hormone, it goes to our fat cells, and at first signal it sends to the fat cells and says, hey, we need more fat to go to our muscles or to go to another cell so that we can actually use it for energy. That's kind of the goal we have, isn't it? We want to lose fat, so don't we want to pull it out of our fat cells and actually use it? Okay, Well, growth hormone is involved in that process. Now, the second thing that growth hormone tells the cells is, hey, we need as much fat as we can for energy, so don't store it. So stop storing it, okay? So it literally, when it binds to the cell, it blocks those doors so we can't store fat. Because again, it's trying to shift everything towards going to other cells so we can use it. It wants it to go to our muscle cells so we can use it. Go to our liver, go to our brain, other areas, okay? It wants it to make sure that we're using it for fuel versus it being stored. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's a couple ways, 2 ways that we can actually increase, 2 ways that we can increase our growth hormone levels. Okay, the first one is by lifting weights. Okay, and I've talked about this before. If you've been following me for a while, you know that lifting weights is probably one of the best ways to raise growth hormone levels. So what happens is as we lift weights, it challenges our muscles enough that our muscles will start pushing out, or send out a signal for us to start releasing growth hormone, okay? And it causes it to rise quite a bit. And again, that goes to our fat cells and says, hey, stop storing fat. We want to send the fat out. We want to get it to our muscles so we can actually use it. So what's the best way to lift weights? Well, the best way is to make sure you're lifting in somewhat of a range around 8 to 12 tends to be the best. There's a couple of reasons why we want to do that. I won't get into all those reasons today in this training, but what I will talk about is how it raises growth hormone. 8 to 12 reps has probably been shown to be one of the better ways to get growth hormone levels to rise the most. Okay, so you stick within that range, but here's the important thing, especially with PCOS, especially with women that I tend to talk to. A lot of people don't understand that I need to make sure I'm lifting heavy enough for 8 to 12 reps. So for example, what I'll see is someone will say, okay, I'm gonna do 8 to 12 reps, but I'm going to grab a weight that I could probably do 20 to 25 or maybe even 30 reps with it. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we can only do 8 to 12 reps. And so the way I have people do that is actually grab a weight and, if you're going to do 3 sets of 12, grab your weight, do a set of 12, relax, rest with that, whether that's doing another exercise, whether that's just sitting and resting, then move to the next exercise, move to that exercise again, grab the weight again, do another set of 12. Okay, we've done 2 sets now. Again, rest or whatever you need to do. Then when you finally get to that last set, just do as many as you can. Okay, so whatever exercise it is, if it's squats, do as many squats as you can. If it's bench press, do as many bench press as you can. Just do as many as you can. If you can do more than 12 reps, then you need to go with a heavier weight. Okay, does that make sense? So just really simple and easy. That's how you know if you need more weight or not. If you can do more than what's recommended, you need more weight. Okay, so make sure you're doing that with your weightlifting. And I know a lot of people are kind of concerned about weightlifting. Machines are fine. Free weights are fine, cables are fine. You just need to make sure you're challenging yourself enough. Now, a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to speak in front of a group of people they were a little bit older. They were in their 60s and things like that. And so their concern was, well, are bands enough? Can I just use bands, like resistant bands versus actually using weights? And my recommendation to them was, yes, bands will be enough as long as they challenge your muscles enough. So if you can only do 12 reps with bands, perfect, okay? But if that's not enough, then we need to start getting into free weights and things like that, or machines or different things, okay? So that makes sense. So that's the first way, is make sure we're lifting weights. And I would do that at least twice, if not 3 times per week. The best optimal would be 4 times per week, but there's a sliding scale on that. Twice a week is good. 3 is really good. 4 is probably the best. More than that, I wouldn't lift more than that, okay? 5 days a week doesn't do any better than 4. 6 days a week, you're probably getting too much, especially if you're lifting the way that you should be lifting, okay? Hope that makes sense. Now, the second thing that we need to do to be able to raise growth hormones is actually getting sleep and making sure that we're getting good quality sleep and not just, getting so many hours. Because I hear people all the time say this, where they're like, oh, I get 7 hours of sleep per night. But one night they may go to bed at like 1 a.m. and then they wake up at 8 a.m. Another night they may go to bed at 10 p.m. and they wake up 7 hours later. And so they're starting their sleep all over the place. And what we need to do is make sure that we're following what we call the circadian rhythm. And we've all heard that before. And we like to think of it as a light-dark cycle, but really it's like kind of a sleep-wake cycle. But the circadian rhythm also deals with what times we eat, what times we do certain activities. I mean, have you ever had this time where, you are always hungry at the same time? Well, that's part of your circadian rhythm. That you've either trained that way, okay, or it needs to be that way. Have you ever noticed that maybe you go to the restroom at the same time every single day? I know when I was back in school, it was always, I always had to go right when I woke up, before sometime in the middle of school I'd go, and then I always had to go right after school. It was almost predictable when I had to go. Well, that part of that is your circadian rhythm. So we need to kind of work with that so that we're going to bed around the same times or we're waking up around the same times, even on weekends. You know how Monday always feels really horrible? Well, part of the reason why is because we have a certain sleep cycle Monday through Friday, but then Friday night we mess that up, and then Saturday night we mess it up, and then we tend to get back onto it Sunday night. But by that point, we've already messed up that rhythm, and now we have to get back into it, and then Mondays feel horrible. If we had the exact same sleep cycle on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, then we wouldn't have that same feeling on Mondays. Okay. Now what happens is when we sleep, during sleep, we actually raise our growth hormone levels. It helps us repair and recover. So in a way, it kind of increases our metabolism. Okay. But then that also helps it so that we're not storing fat. And it kind of spreads out into the early morning of our day. And so we can also decrease the amount of fat we're storing then. Okay, does that make sense? So first one is to lift weights. Second one is to make sure you're getting good quality sleep. And that's, a topic for a whole nother training where we could get into all the things we need to do with sleep. Okay, now the third thing we need to do. Okay, this one's actually not the same. It doesn't really necessarily deal with a growth hormone, but it's something that, especially if you have PCOS, that you need to make sure you do. And I know I've talked about this to several people and in several different trainings, things that I've done, but making sure that you're getting your vitamin D levels tested and that you're actually taking the right amount of vitamin D. And the problem is a lot of us what we'll do is we'll go get tested, we'll find out our levels are low, and then we'll start taking vitamin D, but we don't go back and get tested. We need to find out if our body is actually handling the vitamin D, okay? Because what vitamin D does, there's a study that I read that actually says that the way they described it is as if it puts like a force field around your fat cells so you cannot store fat if your vitamin D levels are at the right level, okay? So we need to make sure, go get tested, find out what your vitamin D levels are. With PCOS, I would say that 90-something% of people with PCOS have low vitamin D levels. And it may be because your PCOS makes it hard to metabolize vitamin D. There might be other things going on with that make it hard for you to be able to do that. And I know for a while, my wife was actually taking 25,000 IUs of vitamin D per day when the recommended amount is 1,000. So she was taking 25 times the amount that she needed. And all it did was slowly bump her vitamin D levels up because she needed that much to be able to function. I've had other people who've taken a little bit more, but again, this is something I recommend doing where you get tested. You don't just take 25,000. Okay, that could cause some problems for you. It could get you to toxic levels. I want you to go get tested, find out what your vitamin D levels are, start taking vitamin D, go get tested again. If your vitamin D levels have not gone up, then you need to go and take more, and then get tested again. And every 3 to 6 months or so, get tested and find out what your vitamin D levels are doing. And if you need more vitamin D, take more vitamin D. Again, the big mistake I see people make is that they go and get tested, they start taking vitamin D, they don't go back. And they have no idea if they've been taking the right amount. So again, if you want to stop your body, or at least slow it down, we can't stop it completely, but if you want to slow your body down from storing fat, okay, the obvious thing is you got to be in a calorie deficit. That's one of the obvious things. But those 3 things we talked about was this. Number 1 is we need to lift weights. Okay. Number 2 is we need to make sure that we're getting the sleep that we need. We're getting good quality sleep. Okay. And number 3 is that our vitamin D levels are at appropriate levels. So go ahead and take that information, do what you can with it, and go from there. But if you'd like my help in making sure that you are doing exactly what you need to do, especially with PCOS, especially with how it affects your metabolism and all those other things, go ahead and follow fatextractionmethod.com. Go there, check out the information, schedule a call if you want to schedule a call, and we can have a conversation. And I will talk to you all later. Hey there, I hope you liked this video, and I hope you got something from it, something you can go and apply today. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video. And more importantly, go ahead and share it with your friends so that they can get the same benefit that you have. Thanks for watching, and I've got more to share with you in the coming weeks.